So, VK on the beat, check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1628 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Make sure I tell you a funny story about Palma Pasta I just heard from yesterday's guest, Manfred. So prompt me for that, Sir Jerry. Okay. Yes. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Building Toronto Skyline, a podcast and book from Nick Iones, sponsored by Fusion Corp Construction Management, Inc. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Joining me today, returning to Toronto Mic'd, is Sir Jerry Levitan. Welcome back, Jerry.
Hey, happy to be here. What's up?
Do I need to call you Sir Jerry? What's the protocol here?
You are required by British law, but since we're in Canada.
Who knighted you? Liz 2? Was it Liz 2? Who knighted you?
No, under the Sir Jerry character, it's Mrs. Poupée.
Oh, see, I don't know the
queen
origin.
of the Poupée Dupes.
Okay. How are things, man? I last saw you at TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen.
Yeah, which is a great. This isn't a plug. It was a great place, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Palma's Kitchen is super.
And did you buy anything during your visit, or you just came for the free pasta?
I didn't. I did. I bought a whole lot of stuff. I can't remember exactly what I did, but I like to
show me the receipt. I need to see the receipts here.
I have them in my iPhone in the iCloud.
Thank you. I'll wait. Okay. So my funny story that I prompted you to remind me to tell that I'm just going to tell because I'm afraid you'll forget because we're not getting any younger, Sir Jerry. But so to put a bow on that, it was amazing to see you at a TMLX event because you're a pretty fresh FOTM. I mean, you only made your Toronto Mike debut in May 2024, and there you are engaging with the community. So before I tell my funny Palma Pasta story I just learned about like 20 minutes ago, what did you think of TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen?
I thought it was great. You had a good, engaged crowd, which surprised me. I didn't.
You thought it would just be you and I, and maybe the VP of Sales.
Well, a few people, but they were all engaged. That was the thing that quite surprised me. So it speaks a lot about you, about Palma's Kitchen, and the station.
And I'm trying to remember when you popped on the mic, but I feel like it was around the time Brad Bradford came on the mic, and then we're going to talk some politics in this return visit here. But Alan Zweig, who had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Alan Zweig.
Happy birthday, Alan.
Were you witness to the whole Zweig storming the table and wanting us to shut up about bike lanes? Were you witness to all that?
I can't remember because I'm in the early stages of dementia. So
is that true? Or are you doing a bit there?
What?
Who am I? Where Jerry wants to know where the hell he is. Okay. So on that note, though, before we press record, we're on the live stream, so people can hear us.
Right.
And I was joking about well, I wasn't joking. I am disappointed you drove here, because I'm not gonna. And I said I'm not gonna give out your address, but the fact that you drove here, like I'm offended by that because I know about where you live, and I said I'm not gonna dox you, but a funny comment that came in. The guy who delivers the West End Phoenix is on the live stream right now. Okay, right. This is the world we live in. What a small world. And he's like, I know where Jerry lives because I would deliver his West End Phoenix.
Which I canceled, no offense.
Well, Bedini's online too. He wants to talk to you about that. Dave Bedini wants to know, why did you cancel the West End Phoenix?
It definitely was a good thing to do. And our mutual friend Jeff Rogers suggested I do it. But I did it when I was... Wow, I'm intimidated. Is that the thing you have over there?
The thing? No, Oh, this is George the Animal Steel.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Less intimidating.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
he would
no, it's
eat
better.
the turnbuckles. Do you remember this?
His skin is better. Yeah.
And he had that colored tongue or whatever because he would lick that lollipop. Do you remember?
Well, so when I was running for the Liberals in the last provincial election, I thought, okay, I gotta, read everything and be part of everything. So that's what that was all about.
Are you running in this provincial election?
I have been asked repeatedly, and I have declined.
Why? By the way, the guy who delivers your West End Phoenix, Tyler, misses walking up your driveway.
Really?
Would you consider resubscribing to Dave Bedini's West End Phoenix in order to give Tyler an opportunity to walk up your driveway once more?
Yes.
Okay, that's legally I know I pretend to be a lawyer. You are a lawyer.
Yeah, that's your opinion.
Is that legally binding, what you just said there?
No, because the key word was consider, right? Okay. That's the key word,
no,
Toronto Mike.
You need no verbal consent. All right, so Tyler, if you deliver his paper, he's not paying for it, is what I think.
No, I often thought that. I was just, after the last election, I just wanted to sort of cleanse myself of all things, right?
Right.
And not that I had to cleanse myself of the West End Phoenix, but it was just okay.
Because talk about picking on the underdogs, like that's a pretty independent. I mean, they started a newspaper in the, in this century. Like that tells you that's who you're picking on here.
Oh no, I wasn't picking on them. They were great. They were great. I actually sort of wanted to write a piece in it, and they declined. But way back then.
Did they know who they were talking to?
No,
next time, get me involved.
That's the thing. They did not know that.
Now that you've been on Toronto Mike, and again, I still want to get to that Palma story because it's so fresh, but I want to let the listenership know if they want to hear the A to Z. So this is not your debut. But in that episode, which was in May 2024, it was episode 1493. What are we now? 1628. Okay, so 1493. I wrote this description at the time. Mike chats with Sir Jerry Levitan the kid who interviewed John Lennon, about interviewing John Lennon, his Oscar nomination, his Emmy win, and his lives as a lawyer, and Sir Jerry. And we can touch on some of this again in this episode, but we had a chat, and I'm just here to say that I felt you hit it out of the park in your Toronto Mike debut, and everyone who listened to a T said, wow, what a great guest. I think Al Grego told me it was a bit like Forrest Gump, where you can't believe all this stuff is happening to one guy. Like you talked about the McCartney thing, of course, that story about you interviewing John Lennon at the King Eddie, that's an unbelievable story. But last time I saw Jeff Rogers was at the King Eddie for the breakfast that Hollywood Suite put on. David Kynes, shout out to you, my friend. But you hit it out of the park to a point where I thought maybe a sequel episode was a bad idea. Like sort of like George Costanza was kind of like, that's it for me. Like I thought maybe we don't tempt fate. What if this is a dog? I love that first episode so much.
Can I eat a pastrami sandwich while we're doing this?
Yes.
Because I like to have the multiple experiences.
I actually recorded this morning already. You're the second episode of the day, believe it or not. And I referenced Art Vandelay in the first recording because he went to school for architecture.
And Kramer had a character when he was acting like a fancy man with a pipe. Von Nostrum, something von Nostrum.
Yeah. Absolutely, and fantastic. So let me get to the Palma Pasta story, and then we'll talk more about you not running for election.
But speaking of John Lennon, and I'm always happy to talk about it. Yeah. Not to everybody, but
just to me,
generally. But this is how crazy that story is. So happened in 1969, so 50 some odd years ago. I'm still in touch with Yoko, with Sean. In fact, during the Grammys, we were texting. The son of John Lennon. Now, how crazy is that?
No, that's absolutely
right?
Nuts. Yeah, and we're going to actually get to that because I got a
sure
comment about Sean Lennon, actually, of all things. And I do wonder what you can say. And if you can't say anything, just touch your nose and I'll go to the next question. But how's Yoko doing?
I haven't, I usually speak with sort of the creative CEO in the Lennon organization, and Sean. So, I generally say, "How's Yoko?" or "How's your mom?" And she's good. But, so I haven't seen her in a few years, but look, she's 91, 92. I'm 38 this July, and I feel like shit.
I think that sweater's 38.
Yeah, it's an old sweater.
We're getting close there. Okay. So, excuse me. I'm going to have to drink some of this coffee here. But where was I going? The Palma story. Yeah, I got to get it out or I'll never get to it. But yesterday's guest is a rock and roll guy. His name's Manfred, and he's in a band called Elephants and Stars. So like every guest, including you today, Sir Jerry, he got a large lasagna, a frozen lasagna from Palma Pasta. You are driving to your home, which is like a block away. You're driving home with a Palma Pasta lasagna. It's in my freezer. That's fact.
Well, that's great. And the only reason I drove, we are literally around the corner from each other. The only reason I drove is I'm going somewhere else from here. I'm going to 7th Street. Right?
Okay, well, yeah, we don't use specifics in this podcast, but I'll fix that one in post. But that's many, many miles away, Jerry. You're going to go all the way there? Holy smokes!
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's a long way from here.
Yeah.
Now,
it's in Newmarket.
Okay, yes. So Manfred got his lasagna, and then he had to go to a gig downtown because they were playing the Baby G, which is on Dundas, I believe, and he was going to do a gig. So he parks his car and he goes for a walk because he was early. Then he comes back to his car, and his car has been broken into, and he goes, "Oh no, my guitar is in that car. My guitar. I'm about to play my guitar, my beloved guitar." And then he looks and he sees the guitar was not touched, but they stole the Palma Pasta lasagna. This is a true story. He shared it with me this morning.
Man.
So I sent it to Anthony at Palma Pasta. I said, "There's no better endorsement. It's like leave the gun, take the cannoli, right? Right. Leave the guitar, take the lasagna." That happened last night, Sir Jerry.
That's an ad. Like it's like
You get him to do like a what do you call it when you speak for you
English?
English, an endorsement. I can't remember the term I'm looking for, but you do that. And you air it on radio stations and stuff.
And
true story.
TikTok. I don't know if you're aware of.
Are you on TikTok?
I am on.
So how's that
TikTok.
going for you? Because I actually have never installed the app or created an account on TikTok.
You have kids, young and younger and
young and
whatever,
old,
right?
Young and old. Not as many as you though.
Like I do. Yeah, I have many wonderful children and 4 grandchildren, but my youngest child, Lana, who's 13. Is the TikTok generation, and she wanted me to go on TikTok, and I said I'd only do it as Sir Jerry.
Right.
So I did a few of these TikTokian, wacky things to music or whatever. And not that long ago, Lana said, "Dad, you've got like thousands of followers." And sure enough, I have on one TikTok, I have something like, I can't remember, whatever. But not only that, what people do is they get a song that's out there in the ether, and they do silly, stupid things about it. One of my songs is called, Sir Jerry's song is called Bad Drivers. And my daughter Lana it keeps repeating throughout the song, "You're a bad driver." That's when she was much younger. There are hundreds of TikTokian crazy things to bad drivers. So I'm sort of a hit on TikTok, and the Chinese people love me.
Driver.
There you go.
Driving in our car, Lana and Jamie too, going not too far, listening to the radio, a cloudy day today, a little rain is drizzling down, the road is pretty clear, but then a blue car cuts in front of us. I make our car go slow, he does the same and turns around. I say a naughty word, the girls say I should calm down. I say the word again, ignoring me, he goes more slow. I say a different word, he laughs at me and then he carries on. Bad drivers, bad drivers. somewhere to go. They drive
And we know
real
Sir Jerry
fast
drives
when
everywhere.
they should drive slow.
So, okay, yes, that's as good an endorsement for TikTok as Manfred had for Palma Pasta Lasagna. That's amazing. Good success there. No, so just because people will go back and hear your Toronto Mike debut if they missed it. If they heard this, they'll go back because it's amazing. You hit it out of the park. But remind us, who the hell is Sir Jerry? Like, what are we talking about?
When I was going through my last divorce, I've been...
How many divorces are we at, Sir Jerry?
At last count, 42.
Just 2 divorces, right?
2 divorces.
So
This is
are you
correct.
married right now?
I am happily married right now. It has worked out wonderfully. And all the kids get along and all the grandkids get along.
It's a modern family. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're with your third wife, and this is the final wife? Look me in the eyes.
Yeah, because I expect
Because you're going to die soon.
I was going to say, yeah, we're in sync. I expect to pass away by Sunday. Now,
Ridley
if-
Funeral Home has a measuring tape for you. And if you're going to pass away by Sunday, maybe we give a heads up to Brad Jones at Ridley Funeral Home right now.
Can I still take the pasta?
You know what? Yeah, because your kids got to eat, right? Okay, so can I ask you 5 kids, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you know Brad has 6 kids with
Okay.
1 wife.
Wow.
Isn't that a mind? So wait,
She's like a machine.
yeah, I'm like, okay, Brad, are you in your 4th marriage? What's going on? You got 6 kids. He's like, no, I only have 1 marriage, and my brain can't compute. Okay, so I have the 4 kids, but 2 marriages, 2 each marriage. Can you give me the breakdown? Was it like 2-2-1? Like, how does your kids per wife ratio go?
So first marriage, when this is a great
This is very,
interview.
important
CNN
detail.
never asked me this.
Did Sean Lennon want to know this?
He does know it. Because the first time we talked was on a Zoom during the pandemic, and it was when he wanted me to do these produce these animations for Spotify for his dad's album.
Right.
He says, so, like, you got a bunch of kids and you're a lawyer and you're running to be a politician?
Right.
What the fuck is that all about, right? Yeah. Anyways, so first marriage, I got married when I was 23. I had my first kid at 26. So what do you know?
Similar, yeah. Okay.
So 3 kids, 3 wonderful kids from number 1, numero uno. Number 2, the liaison happened sort of as the dust was settling from Apocalypto number 1.
Right.
And that didn't last that long, but I have a wonderful daughter from that engagement.
So it was worth it.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And Anissa, who I'm married to now, we actually met in the infancy of Sir Jerry. As my shows were evolving, I kept adding characters and musicians, and one day I said, I need dancers, right? And she's a National Ballet graduate and now produces things.
Is she an intimacy coordinator?
She's also an intimacy coordinator, but there's not a lot of intimacy coordination going on in our home, if you know what I'm talking about.
Wow, this is the real talk people tune in for.
That's right. Like no coordination, right? Although on occasion she's like, what? There you have it.
Sir Jerry Raw. That's what we're hearing here. So, I mean, so many questions, but geez.
So many questions, but few answers.
Few I can say on this podcast here. I want to respect your privacy here. But, okay, so 5 kids and 4 grandkids. And, okay, so you have 1 kid with your current wife?
Yeah, that's
okay,
it.
I had to do the math. See who's left here. We got to get to 5 here.
Yeah.
All right, that's exciting, and
but you know, as a dad with a variety of ages of kids, we're both in tune, multi-generationally in tune, and particularly in pop culture, right? So, you know, I know sort of the latest stuff. You know,
the way I look at it is, I can do Blue's Clues because my 23-year-old was a huge Blue's Clues fan, like just crazy about Blue's Clues. But I can also do Bluey, because my 8-year-old was a huge Bluey fan before she graduated to The Simpsons. So,
right. Well, speaking of Blue, have you seen that Robert Kennedy Jr. recently, in the last couple of days, was at some event or speaking or something, and cameras caught him, or someone caught him. He had a drink in front of him, and he squirted this blue liquid.
Oh, no, I'm kind of out of this loop. No.
Right, so the media's trying to figure out.
Is it antifreeze? What is that?
Maybe it kills worms in the brain. I don't know. Anyways.
All right, a lot of ground to cover here. Oh yeah, I was going to ask. I was going to ask you an Anissa question. Geez, what was it going to be? I had it at the tip of my tongue. Okay, it is episode 2 of the day, so you're going to have to carry the weight. See what I did there? Okay.
She's actually right now with Guillaume Cote, principal dancer at National Ballet. They grew up together at National Ballet in shows in Quebec with Robert Lepage. Anybody who knows about dance knows about Robert Lepage in Canada. So she goes for days, weeks on end, and I'm in charge of Lana.
Beautiful.
Thank
you. Yeah. Great detail was told in your meeting with John Lennon when you were a teenager. How old were you?
14.
14. The story's unbelievable. So get to that first episode. We're not going to recount it, but who knows? Maybe we will. But I wondered, as a Torontonian for decades who loved the radio, were you familiar with John Donaby?
Yeah, totally. Are you kidding?
Yeah, I know. I knew you were.
It was the only game in town, Chum AM, Chum FM, right?
So we lost John Donaby last week.
Right, I read that.
You and John do have something in common, and you have both interviewed John Lennon. That's your link. I know a lot of radio guys have interviewed John Lennon, but John Donaby many times would interview John Lennon. And in tribute to John Donaby, since I'm talking to the kid who interviewed John Lennon, I thought maybe we'd listen to like a couple of minutes of John Donaby talking to John Lennon. Cool. You want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
All right. This is in loving memory of a sweetheart FOTM, John Donaby. And if you want to hear, I think I did 2 hours of John Donaby about his career. I just recently put that together, repackaged it as a memorial episode. So it's in the Toronto Mike feed. I think I dropped it like last Friday or something like that. So find that. Here's John Donaby talking about John Lennon.
Well, I'll tell you, just a personal thing. Ronnie Hawkins said to mention to you that if you should ever come up here, he's got a nice secret hideaway for you.
I wonder if he's still living in the same place. I had a great time last time.
No, he sold that particular farm, and he's living at another farm at this particular point.
Well, I'd certainly give him a call when I was up there.
Yeah. Tell me, John, let's talk about Walls and Bridges for a moment. I understand the album took roughly 6 weeks to put together?
Yeah, 6 weeks in the studio, 8 weeks from start to getting it into the shops in some of the... I know it's not out there yet, but it's nearly out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Normally I'm not more than 8 weeks in the studio at a time, you know? Because I find myself getting bored after 8 weeks, you know?
Are you one of those people that feel if you can't get it in the first few takes, it's perhaps not worth it, or...
Yeah, I hate going over and over a song, you know?
Uh-huh.
Because you get to hate it, the musicians get to hate it, and it begins to sound stiff, you know? I like to catch myself and the musicians at that point just before they're going to get bored, when they're still interested in it because it's a new song. Mm-hmm. And just before you go into that bit where it's, well, let's start from scratch and change the whole format. If it gets into that, I tend to drop it and have and either give the song away or do it the next album.
John, how do you go about deciding exactly who you want on the LP? Do you feel who would be best on that particular cut, or do you like to use people for, say, an entire LP?
Yeah, I like to use the same musicians for a whole album. I like to augment them with different people, but basically I like to get people that I've worked with before, if possible, because then they know what I'm talking about, you know, if I'm trying to explain myself to them. And also I feel more relaxed if I'm with friends, you know?
Right.
And and if they've played together before, it's the next best thing to having a permanent group.
Was it a bit of a personal favor, perhaps, that Harry Nilsson and Elton decided to do the album with, or come on some of the cuts with you?
Well, it was almost by accident. I was producing Harry Nilsson's album, Pussycat, out now in your local store, folks. And we were hanging out together. Yes. And we wrote a song together. Mm-hmm. And so I put it on my album, and Harry, of course, wanted to sing it because he'd been part of it, so he sang the harmony. Mm-hmm. And with Elton, I'd been introduced to Elton maybe 8 months ago by a mutual friend, Ringo, and another guy, Tony King from Apple. and we got on fine together, you know. And he just popped into New York on his way through and walked in the studio and said, "Hey, can I put some piano on that?" And I said, "Sure, you know, go ahead." So he runs in, plays piano, and then I said, "Look, while you're here, do you want to sing harmony?" He says, "Sure," and he sang the harmony, and that's on the single, Whatever Gets You Through the Night. And then he told me he was going to record Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds for a single.
Right.
And he asked me would I go to Caribou and sing it with him. So I said, sure, you know, it'll be a pleasure. So I went down there and sang that. And that's the way it goes. And it's good fun.
Now, the
you know,
interview
'cause
goes for several
people
minutes,
spark
so
each
I'll bring
other
it down.
on, you know?
But, Jerry, they're bringing back some memories of...
You know, speaking, he was. It was the Walls and Bridges era. Sean and this guy Simon Hilton, who's the creative CEO at the Len organization, won a Grammy for best, I think, repackaged material. And what they did is they took the Mind Games album, which I think was the album before Walls and Bridges, and it's unbelievably spectacular what they've done. It's like now like a 4 or 5, 6 CD package thing, and they've isolated John's voice and enhanced it and done all kinds of stuff. So it's I don't get a commission on it, but you really got it. If you love John Lennon, you got to check this out because it's
Well, it's funny
state of the
'cause
art.
so the comment that came in from Mark, and Mark only speaks for Mark. Okay, this is his opinion, but he goes, now that Sean Lennon won a Grammy for repackaging a dad album nobody cared about the first time around, there's no stopping him. But the one with "Woman is the N-word of the world" will probably remain a third rail.
You know, that song, I remember when it came out, it was so Beatlesque. It was so like, I'm the Walrus, scary, you know, Happiness is a Warm Gun song. And at the time, if I remember correctly, the black community, the radical black community embraced it because he was hanging out with Black Panthers and stuff like that. And the message of woman is the end of the world, like if you know, parse away the politics of names and things like that we have today, the bottom line is women are at the bottom of the line everywhere, right? But it didn't
age well.
Great song. Yeah.
It didn't age well. It didn't age well, but, you know, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Pulp Fiction, like maybe my favorite movie of all time. And there's a huge scene with Tarantino dropping N-word after N-word.
Right.
And, you know, and it's like, I don't think, you know, it's like one of those, I personally won't use it. Like, you won't find it in the Toronto Mic. I'll say N-word if I need to reference the N-word. But it is interesting that song with the N-word in the title, which might be a great song. It's just,
Here's a line from it. We make them paint their face and dance. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, I don't make anyone paint their face and dance, but
Well, on that note, so it's funny. I was wrestling. I was going to say something about your wife, and then I forgot what I was going to say, and then I remembered it. And so I remembered what I was going to say while we were listening to John Donaby. Rest in peace, and shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. We lost a good one there. But I remembered what I was going to say, and then my brain, and I heard it in my brain what I was going to say, and it was a stupid comment. And I said, Mike, that's not good enough to say. Like, it's like, that like, what were you were going to say that? It was stupid. And I was going to ask, and I'll just say it now because I can't not say it now, but I was going to ask, when there's intimacy in your home, if Anissa requests you stay in the Sir Jerry character... Because you might remember Mr. Plow. Call Mr. Plow. That's my name. Do you ever watch The Simpsons? Okay, you're missing the Mr. Plow.
I have watched Simpsons, but I can't.
You don't speak Simpsons? Get the hell out of my basement. Okay. But Marge did ask that Homer stay in the Mr. Plow character with the Mr. Plow jacket when they were coordinating their intimacy.
No. If I dressed up as Sir Jerry in intimate scenarios, there would be no intimate scenarios.
But you're saying there is intimate scenarios now.
Yes, Mike. There are, and there are no boundaries.
No coordination required.
Yeah.
Okay, love it so much. Love that this is all happening in New Toronto. You know, keep it sexy, baby. Okay. Speaking of sexy, we are going to the polls. The provincial election is later this month. What is it, February 27th?
Something like that. Yeah.
So we got 20 days to go. I do want to revisit something we said off the top, and then we had to get silly because now it's time to get serious, Sir Jerry. Now, you were asked to run in this election. What party asked you where, and why did you say no?
I've been a Liberal even before the days of Pierre Trudeau. As a kid growing up, Liberals, at least many young kids, were enamored by the idea that Canada was going to be this great international, loving, tolerant society and all those kind of things. And Lester Pearson started it from my perspective growing up. And then Pierre Trudeau came along, and he was a hero of mine. So I've been a Liberal since then. And so it's the Liberal Party that and people in the Liberal Party that have asked me. Although once I was asked to run for the NDP. That's another story. Yeah. Bonnie Crombie and the Ontario Liberals is what we're talking about. And, a couple people asked me to run and thought I was going to run because I ran last time, and I'm taking a pass.
Why are you taking a pass?
Well, it's not that I'm afraid of hard work. I worked really hard in the last election, knocked on tens of thousands of doors and had a great team. It's just I'm not, the mojo isn't there for me right now. And, I'd be happy, and it was true back then, I would have been happy to have won and be in the opposition. Many times that's, for someone like me, that would be a better thing. You can say what you want to say, and you can just go for it. So that wouldn't be an impediment, but it's just I don't have the mojo.
What riding are we talking about here?
I was asked to run in Spadina, Fort York, which originally I was going to run in the last election, but the powers that be at the time thought I'd be best suited taking on Merritt Stiles in Davenport. Right? So that's where I was. So that was a fun experience. So Spadina, Fort York, and was suggested I run in other ridings too, but Spadina, Fort York would have fit because I lived there around Queen and Spadina for some 25 years and had a lot of support, still would have a lot of support there. And it's the question of me running federally in Spadina, Fort York has raised its head, and I haven't totally closed the door on that. Want to see how the leadership, scene plays, and whether Trump is going to send tanks into Newmarket. I'll say Newmarket twice.
You're picking on Newmarket today.
Yeah, why not?
Were you a big Newmarket Saints fan? Do you remember the Newmarket Saints?
Sports is not my...
No sports, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
I can't talk Simpsons or sports. What the hell am I going to say?
No, you can talk,
Okay,
and you have talked. I mean, you haven't stopped talking since I got here, for God's sake.
You do know it's called Toronto Mic'd, okay?
Oh,
Sir Jerry
right.
is a different podcast.
I wish
Come
I
on.
had an intimacy coordinator.
How dare you drive here from a block away and criticize the host of this fine podcast? And I was going to give you Great Lakes beer. Should I? Okay. Fresh. Do you drink beer? No.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
I drive,
You drink and drive.
like a block away and drink beer.
Well, it's
Not while driving.
No, I was going to say, you're trying to run for politics. You can't be saying things like that. We do not condone drinking and driving on this podcast. If you've had too much to drink, I'll pick you up on my bike. Give me a call. I'll get you.
I'll pick you up because, as you know from Mike, that I drive everywhere, even to take the garbage out to the end of my driveway.
What was the Steve Martin movie about Los Angeles or whatever, where there was a funny scene?
Yeah,
Sarah
L.A. Story.
Yes. Do you remember the scene where they get in the car to drive, and it's like the next door? They drove next door.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where you don't see it, because then they pull out and you see he. And I laughed. I mean, I laughed. I know that joke's been done in different ways a million times, but I laughed out loud because in L.A. you do drive everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Great story.
Shout out to Steve Martin. Okay. I want to finish with provincial before we get to the federal leadership race. What about the riding you live in right now, which is currently, the MPP is a progressive conservative member named Christine Hogarth.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Christine, and how are you feeling about, voting here?
Well, I know who's running here, and it's Lee Fairclough, and I know her. She's great. She's just she's was an administrator of a major hospital and ran last time, giving up that job because she saw how healthcare was just deteriorating. That's like the best kind of person running in politics, like actually for a reason. And so she's spectacular. So obviously I wouldn't run here. And I don't really know. I've only been here for about 3 years or 4 years or so. So I don't really know the area very much.
But you, of course, you know how to look at the most recent results, and you can see that Lee, the Liberal candidate in this riding, was pretty close.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to oust Doug Ford, and if you wanted to vote against the Progressive Conservative Party, even if you're an NDP voter, you would be smarter to cast your vote for Lee Faircloth. How do you say the last name?
I'm not okay. Now you're putting me on the spot.
Well, Faircloth is how I always read it when I see the signs, but maybe I need to ask Lee how you say her last name. But I've heard nothing but good things, and to a point where when Brad Bradford was here, we were talking privately afterwards. That's when the good stuff comes out, and he was telling me how excellent a candidate Lee is, and how good she would be for this riding.
You should have her on because she's unusual in this day and age. In that, like I said, is running for a reason, right? And I'll name drop now. Many years ago, the Liberals wanted to be run federally because I was a lawyer in the news, young lawyer in the news, and
you're Sir Jerry, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, Sunday was way before Sir Jerry. So it was Sunday shopping. I won the case for video stores and bookstores and stuff. So, anyways, Paul Martin called me to try to get me to run, and being the cocky young lawyer. Now I'm just a cocky old lawyer, but cocky young lawyer.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'd want to speak to my hero, Pierre Trudeau. I'm a Pierre Trudeau liberal. They arranged it. Went to see Trudeau, and to make a very long story short, because we talked about John Lennon.
But I do like this story.
We talked about John Lennon. And as we're talking about John Lennon, when I met Trudeau in his office, he said, so why do you want to run? And he caught me off guard because Paul Martin called me to talk about it. It's not like I had a specific idea, and I don't remember what I said, but I talked like an idiot. I like, to do the things you do, that blah 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 whatever. And he smirked, that sardonic Pierre Trudeau smirk, and he slapped my knee. We were sitting on this couch, and the Einstein Peace Award was on top, and he said, "Look, if you're gonna run, find a reason. Even if it's to get a mailbox in front of your grandmother's home. Otherwise, you're like all these bums." Wow, sound effect. And that
was the sound of him slapping your knee.
Yeah, I had a metal insert even back then. But that resonated and resonates to this day, because that's the point. You have so many, and I've seen them, right? Because I was in it. You have so many people running. And if you put them on the spot and say, why you're running, you'll get bullshit, right?
And that's what's refreshing about Lee Faircloth, as I've decided to call her. But you said I should get her on, but that would break my streak where I'm on episode. I've never pursued or invited an active politician on this program. Every single active politician who has been on Toronto Mike is because they reached out and said, would you have me on?
Wow.
Every single one.
Wow.
And I feel like I kind of dig it that way, because then I don't want to be the guy who only talks to the Liberal candidates. Like theoretically, if and she hasn't reached out, but if Christine Hogarth, who I'm no fan of, it sounds like you're no fan either, but if she reached out and said, would you like to talk to me on your podcast? For her, I would say yes, because I have questions for her. Like I want to have a conversation with her, and I would say yes. And I don't want to be, if I'm reaching out, am I just reaching out to like people who like bike lanes? Is that going to be my thing? Only politicians who want to put bike lanes on every street or whatever. But so I'd rather they just ask me if they want to come on, and then if I deem them worthy, I say yes.
Well, that's fair,
So Lee, you got to ask to come on, is what we're saying here. So
I'll speak to her.
You know what? If she asked to come on, I would have her on. So totally would have her on. Now that's what's happening.
Can I before we leave the subject?
Let's stay provincial.
Here's the thing. I'm not running, so I'm not an active politician. I'm barely an active human, as you know. I drove here. But here's the thing. the Ford conservatives, I mean, when you actually take the time to look at it, forget of what your political stripe is. We're really talking about billions of dollars that are just flying away for stupid, inappropriate reasons. Billions and billions of dollars, whether you're talking about Ontario Place or the Green Belt fiasco or canceling the beer contract a year before it would cancel anyways, giving people $200, who doesn't want $200? But
Did you get yours yet?
I did.
Okay, because I got mine yesterday.
Really? Okay. It took a while. I got mine 2 weeks ago.
Well, yours for Jerry.
Yeah, right. But, like if you add it up, just take the time and add up these unnecessary, inappropriate expenditures, money that would go into our schools. You're a dad, the school system. Like when I went on parent-teacher interview a few months ago, the school was filthy, like garbage on the steps. And when I went to the teacher and I said, like, geez, you'd think the caretaker would clean it up for parent-teacher interview.
Right.
And the health system, homeless people, kids can't afford, young people can't afford homes. So why the hell would you vote conservative? Now, I got to say, having said that, I like what he's done in terms of the Trump stuff. And even though he's doing it for political reasons to a large extent, that was necessary and still is necessary for some people. Like Trudeau, the prime minister, has to, and some premiers have to sort of tread an easy line because hundreds of thousands of jobs are at stake. But he started acting like Captain Canada, and you need people to actually say it. So, anyways.
No, my previous guest hates Trudeau, his own words, but had wanted to commend him on that speech. Yeah. So it's giving credit where credit is due. So. Absolutely. Now I'm thinking municipally real quick before I branch out is in our neighborhood, there is a proposed shelter at 66 3rd Street.
Yeah.
And I have in my calendar a gentleman, his name is Bruce Davis. So Bruce Davis is he's not political, but he's been appointed as, I guess, a point person or whatever for the consultations and making sure people understand what's true, what's false with this proposed homeless, what do we call it? A shelter for the unhoused, etc. Now, Bruce will be on Toronto Mike to answer a bunch of pointed questions and to get some real talk on this. But what are your thoughts, Sir Jerry, as a citizen of this neighborhood?
Sure. I know this subject, not just this shelter, very well. As a lawyer, many years ago, I represented a place called Namirez, a very important shelter, the Native men's residence, and it's on Vaughan. And I originally was hired to get Indigenous people on the board and get rid of the white people, right? And we did, and I was involved with them. They were one of the first organizations that had they would take vans out, in winter in the middle of the night, and I would go with them. So amazing organization. So through that, I way back when I understood that. When I was running, one of the files that was ones that I had to get grips with was housing. And I spent a lot of time with Adam Vaughan, for example, who was the MP for Spadina Fort York. And, that guy is great in terms of knowledge of urban affairs and housing and things like that. So I spent a lot of time, and part of it was dealing with homelessness. And it's not a solution just to drop a shelter in neighborhoods that some people think is a good idea, just drop them without a plan. And the best plans that are going on in Scandinavia and parts of Europe are ones where it's not just creating a shelter and saying because it's in a neighborhood, it's good for people to experience that on both sides. You think about it. So you find an area that may be on the periphery of a neighborhood, and you create a mini sort of urban situation so that in the center of it there's a small health clinic, even if it's in a van. There's a social person who can assist in integrating people in the community. You have an employment sort of guidance person. And you create, there are all these mini homes that you can create just out of sort of used containers and stuff where it's not people in a tent and whatever. And part of that is you can control the drug use and the alcohol use, and it becomes a more coherent thing. So my understanding of this is, yeah, there's a place, it's near the water, we'll use it. Well, how are they going to be integrated for their own purposes, right? What are they going to do? Walk through this area and go on to Lakeshore, where Lakeshore in this area is already, that has all kinds of problems. It's fundamentally inappropriate from all of my reading of how you do it. Like I said, in Scandinavia and Europe, it's just, we're going to stick it to people in a neighborhood that really we don't care where the votes are coming from.
Will you be attending the drop-in community session that is taking place Monday, February 10th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Humber College Lakeshore Campus, Building G?
I have the flyer. I was like, I'm not joking. I'm just so upset with so many things. And, the reason I ran was because I knew I could make a contribution, and just nothing seems to be right these days. And can I go on this rant about Old City Hall?
Yeah.
I wrote a piece, I write quite regularly for the Toronto Star, and I wrote a piece that I don't even know if it's going to go in, about Old City Hall. So this building is an amazing building. And when I started as an articling student, right out of law school, I would have to go there, and up until 2 months ago, I went to courtroom. And, there was a piece in the Star that City Council this debate about Old City Hall has been going on for decades. It's been a courthouse since, I think, when New City Hall came
my
about.
marriage number 1 took place at Old City Hall.
All right. How beautiful is that place?
Great memories.
Right?
2 beautiful children.
So the courthouse is now, all the courts in the whole world of Ontario, the Toronto area, are now in this massive, crazy building on University, one of Doug Ford's brilliant ideas. And so they've been transitioning Old City Hall, so within a month or two, that's it. It's going to be an empty building. If you go now, there are like maybe 2 courts that you can go there to, or a clerk's office. It's like a ghost man. It's like an Adam Sandler horror movie, Anyways, the latest thing is for another study and whatever, and the buzz is to create it into a Toronto City Museum. So this is 4 stores of this Gothic, spectacular building.
Beautiful building.
Yeah, and I think the people of Toronto and tourists from Buffalo are clamoring to go in and see portraits of William Somerville, who was a mayor back in the 60s. And, here's like a door of one of a historic building who gives a flying whatever? You know what I mean? Like, all you need is one sort of semi-large room, right? To do that. So my idea is to create the Toronto Arts Center for independent artists. The courtrooms, there are small ones, big ones, mediums. Right. You wouldn't have to do much. There are little theaters, there are rehearsal space, and tens of thousands of independent artists are in desperate need of something. Like, that's not the only idea, although I think it's a good one. A museum.
Maybe if it was like a museum to Toronto's rich music history. The Yorkville, the coffee houses in the 60s.
Well, that could be integrated. You don't need 4 massive floors, right? So you could have all these youngish people, media artists, and that was part of my piece. They could deal with those things. So if you have musicians working there for rehearsal space and to have performances or whatever, You could go into a room where you'd see what the rich, like you say, I mean, Yorkville was like, wow, who knows about that? But if leave it to city council to create a museum of Toronto, it'll be, look how great we are. Here's the CN Tower. This is when they put the spike on it. And this councillor was this, and the Henry Moore things came over, whatever. So
The John Tory wing.
The John Tory. So basically what it would be, and this was in my piece, like I said, I don't know if it's going in because I didn't pull any punches. It's like, here's a museum of how great and promising Toronto was, right? And now look at it. Like, as much as we all love, I mean, you're Toronto Mike. As much as we love
Born at St. Joe's Health Center.
Okay.
Parkdale. Shout out to Parkdale.
Right, exactly. Beautiful. Like, the history of Parkdale, like, you know, Heinzman. Toronto at one point, around 1900, was the largest, as I understand it, manufacturer of pianos in North America.
Shout out to Glenn
Parkdale.
Gould. I had no idea.
Yeah, Parkdale. But anyways, it's so there's...
You could replace Jeremy Hopkin as the official Toronto historian of the Toronto Mike podcast.
Why, thank you.
But Hopkin might not like that. He might beat you up.
But back to your point about the shelter, I mean, there's just, like, I'm exhausted from all the problems in Toronto and running and then afterwards and writing for the Star about how the transportational system is so fucked up. Can I say that?
Yeah, you just did.
You know, housing, like, geez.
Well, can I ask you more about 66 Third before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
because
so you know what? I think because you've raised it, originally I wasn't going to go because I would just be frustrated. I think I will.
here's what I want you to do. Okay. So back in December, Amber Morley came over. Now, Amber Morley is an active politician, and she came over, and we did talk at great lengths about this shelter. And she told me that, the guy who you need to talk to who's non-political, because Amber Morley wants to get reelected next year, the person you want to talk to is Bruce Davis. So I reached out to Bruce. We had and Bruce tells me he's hosting this drop-in session Monday, the February. So I'm talking to Bruce after that. So I want him to have that community session and hear from, because I know there's a staunch anti-shelter crowd forming who don't think. And part of it, and I just want to hear out everything. Like, I don't want to do things just to do things. I want things to be well planned, like yourself. I don't want to hear NIMBYism, like not in my backyard.
Right.
But so part of what I find encouraging is that this shelter, which right now it's a parking lot, it's not opening until it'll be open. They say sometime between 2028 and 2030. So this probably means 2035 or something. Like, we'll be dead. I'm
already dead.
Don't cry for me. I'm already dead. So it seems like there is a lot of time to do this right. Like, I mean, this consultation happens Monday, and then Bruce Davis will be on Toronto. So what I want you to do as like a valued FOTM, Sir Jerry, is I want you to go to this event at Humber College Lakeshore Campus, Building G, 17 Colonel Samuel Smith Park Drive. I want you to go there. Bruce Davis is going to host. I think Amber Morley is going to be there. And you ask, you don't have to ask, just take it all in and then submit to me all of your questions, because I'm going to have a one-on-one with Bruce Davis, and I'm just looking for facts and to air the concerns of the citizens and et cetera, et cetera. Like, you could give me, these are 10 pointed questions you have for Bruce Davis regarding 66 3rd Street, and I will ask them. You accept this challenge?
I accept it. I
Okay,
will.
good.
I will do it. I know without even going too far. And like I said, like what I know about how to deal with homelessness and people with drug issues and stuff like that. That's not the way to do it. To plunk them at the bottom of a neighborhood where on one side is water, and then it's a 15-minute walk to Lakeshore. What is that?
Well,
what is that going to do?
It's a no-minute walk to Lakeshore, right? Because it's at Lakeshore and 3rd.
Oh, well, I mean
Okay.
the Lakeshore Boulevard.
Okay. Well, that's Lake. No. Okay. So yeah, so this neighborhood we're talking about, like, this is at Lakeshore and 3rd, basically the shelter
at
they're proposing.
close to the water.
Right.
Very
Okay, I see
close
what
to the
you're
water.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to get to the main street, the east-west street of this neighborhood, which has its own problems as it is, but to go to a variety store or grocery store, gets
It
cigarettes.
doesn't have
or
a
whatever.
grocery store, first of all.
Yeah.
Like you got to go to No Frills at.
They actually do, and there's one. There's run by an Asian family on the north side. It's actually not that bad.
Okay, yes. Okay, I've seen that. It's a smaller. I haven't gone in because I'm afraid the prices. I don't know. I got to feed a lot of
It's
kids
cheap.
there.
Well, it's
Okay, I'm gonna
cheaper.
look at it.
It's
I'm gonna look
cheap.
at it.
It's better prices than at farm them / they.
So everybody in New Toronto or anyone who's just interested more in the 66 3rd Street shelter that's been proposed, tune in to Bruce Davis's Toronto Mike debut, which is going to be in I think later this month. So do that. Sir Jerry, you've got your assignment here.
Yeah.
How do you think Amber Morley is doing as a rookie city councillor for this? What are we calling it? Riding? It's not a ward. Is it a ward? What do you call it municipally?
Yeah, it's a ward.
Okay.
It's a ward.
How do you think Amber Morley is doing?
Lousy.
Well, let's get the real talk on that. I want to hear what.
I mean,
more
I
on that.
haven't dug into it that much, but I'm I don't want to get into too many specifics, but I may have voted for her, in fact, because I generally vote Liberal, but not all the time. If there's something.
Well, the incumbent was Mark Grimes, and I know you're
Yeah.
fairly new to the neighborhood, but he had been here a long time, and greasy AF.
Yeah, greasy AF. What does that mean?
Greasy as fuck. I got to teach Sir Jerry the new lexicon. So you're not a fan at this point. You're not a fan of Amber
No,
Morley.
for a variety of reasons, and I wouldn't vote for her again.
Okay, interesting. Let's talk about this federal leadership race here.
Yeah.
So
I know a lot about that.
okay, because Trudeau hit it out of the park, in my humble opinion, with his speech and pushing back against the proposed tariffs, which maybe this will tie into that. So what are your thoughts on the Liberal leadership race? What's next for when the prorogue, is that how you say it, prorogue? When they're back in Parliament, if they get voted down, there will be an election. What do you think of that? And then please, let me hear your thoughts on Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, and his threats to annex this country and make it the 51st state. And even that and the 25% tariffs, we have some kind of stay of execution on till I don't know, early March or something.
Let's start.
So I'm going to drink my coffee and let you go for half an hour.
So I'll talk slowly. Let's start with the Liberal leadership. First of all, Justin Trudeau, a.k.a. the Prime Minister. When I was running provincially a number of years ago, I'd knock on the door and many people invariably would say, Liberal? No way, I'm not voting Liberal. I hate Justin Trudeau. And at the beginning, I would say, what is it specifically that you hate? And remember, this was at the time of COVID, CERB, right? Hard to say back and then that Trudeau and the Liberal government didn't have people's backs, right? If you take your mind back to that. But anyways,
I agree.
I would say, what is it specifically that I don't like him, right? And to this day, you sort of get that. Sure, there have been ups and downs, and sometimes, some policy decisions aren't necessarily the right ones, but can you say that he's mismanaged our economy? Our economy was doing relatively well. Anyways, in politics, as a voter, I think you got to look at the whole perspective, because sure, you might not like him or the government for whatever reason. And then what is the result? The result with that kind of attitude is people like Donald Trump, right? How does that guy get in? All those Republican lemmings, right? It's because votes get split, and people vote out of anger and out of emotion, out of rage. They want to express it, so they end up, what's the expression? You cut your nose to spite your face, right?
Right.
And that's the worst kind of way to vote. So personally, I think it's too bad that he resigned, but he had to, because things were just so stacked up against him. And you saw the real Justin Trudeau, how he's been acting since then, and it's been admirable. The easy thing is to act like Doug Ford and say, oh, yeah, well, the Americans, we're going to take the booze off the American products off the way. That's an easy thing to do. But Justin Trudeau had to think about, if he pisses Trump off that much vocally,
Right.
300,000 jobs go in Oshawa.
He has to be diplomatic about it, because he needs to work. Yeah, he's trying to work with Trump.
Yeah, he's thinking of the people, right?
Absolutely.
Right. But anyways, So I think most people would agree. Forget about your political stripe. If you said to them, "What do we need now as a leader?" I think most people would say, "Well, it'd be good to have someone who really knows how to deal with the economy and knows international."
Well, I know who you're
things.
talking about.
Yeah. Hence, Ruby Doll. So I think Mark Carney totally fits the bill. And the guy isn't a career politician, and all these things. Oh, he's been, he's to blame for what the government is doing, or whatever. Is baloney, right? He wasn't a cabinet minister or whatever. Sure, he was the Bank of Canada governor, so you'd pick his brain. He was the Bank of England governor too. So, and not only that, I mean, how connected is this guy to get on Jon Stewart, right? So he obviously knew somebody close to him or whatever. So, anyways, I think that's the guy who should lead the Liberals, and I think a poll just came out saying that he had a very favorable. The question I think was, who do you think would be the best person to deal with Donald Trump? And his name,
Mark Carney.
Yeah.
So that federal leadership election or vote or whatever is March 9. So I'm just tracking all the dates. So, okay, so we go to the polls to vote provincially February 27. That's 20 days from now.
Yeah.
The federal Liberal, although I do advanced polling, but okay. The federal Liberals pick their leader on March 9th. Let's say in a hypothetical situation that shortly thereafter, because the Liberals are a minority government, we have to go to the polls federally, and it's Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. Do you have a crystal ball? What do you think happens there?
There's a lot of there's a huge gap, right, in the polls, which manifested in Justin Trudeau saying that he was going to resign. And it's hard to catch up. But no one's really paid attention to Pierre Poilievre. And if he's just been coasting on everything is in a snide way, Trudeau this, Trudeau that, and it's raining, it's icy rain, it's Trudeau. It's because, when he was asked about Trump's musings about taking over Canada, he said 3 words. His first musings were response was, said a few words about Canada, whatever, and he says, but he has no respect for Trudeau. Well, what does that have to do with anything when you have the President of the United States saying that basically Canada should be the 51st state? Fuck you. That should have been everybody's response. Every politician in Canada should have said, we are Canadians, we stand with the government, and this is our...
Snowball's chance in hell is what I read from Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
And I think that's too much chance, because I feel like I don't know what a snowball does in hell. That's too...
Doesn't last long.
No, it's too long for my liking here. Yeah. But I'm with you. So Pierre Poilievre, Mark Carney, buckle up. This is quite a year, this 2025. Yeah.
I think he has a shot. He's a smart guy. Right. Mark Carney, he's a smart guy. He's articulate. He's got a sense of humor. He's got a twinkle in his eye. He's got, the federal Liberals have a great social media post, and it's sort of a split screen. So it's the resume of Pierre Poilievre.
Right.
On the left, it's Mark Carney. And it just goes down and down. World Bank, this, that, whatever. Climate change ambassador for the United Nations, Bank of Canada governor. So it goes on, and Pierre Poilievre has been MP since whatever. That's
forever,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. I think he has a shot. So when people start to see what the comparative leaders of the various parties are, I think people will gravitate to Mark Carney, and that's my hope, because I think the last thing we need as Canadians is to have someone like Poilievre biting an apple when somebody asks him a question, and Trump is the president, right?
Right.
Who needs that?
Sounds risky to me.
Yeah.
Now, in this riding, because I bring it hyper-local here, James Maloney. Here it comes now. It is James Maloney. He's been there for a while now. He was there before I even moved in here.
I know him well.
So, does he have your vote?
Yeah. Well,
that's the only way you're going to get Mark Carney as
Well,
Prime Minister.
well, yeah, but I mean, why would I vote for a conservative? Like, why would you vote?
But people do.
I know they do.
Our
but-
our MPP is from the Progressive Conservative Party.
yeah, but that's the problem we have. You know,
So you're a never con, as we say. You would never vote Conservative.
I'm trying to remember if I ever did.
See, I've never voted Conservative.
I don't think I have. I'm trying to remember if there was a time that I didn't. I don't think I ever have.
You didn't slip and vote for Mulrooney?
Oh God, no.
I had on. So I'm going to recommend an episode of Toronto Mike to you. Alan Gregg. Do you know Alan? Okay,
Yeah.
so he dropped by a couple of weeks. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. Everything's a blur to me now. And it was a great conversation, though. And of course, he was the strategist for the Progressive Conservative Party when Mulrooney won those two big majorities.
Yeah.
But he was also in charge when Kim Campbell was running and Jean Chrétien. They put out the ad that looked like they were making fun of Chrétien's face because of his childhood polio. So he took, I think that was when he quit. He quit that next day and he didn't work in politics again. Oh, he did help John Tory with his campaigns as a favor for a butt or something like that. But Alan Gregg was a great episode of Toronto Mike, and I think you would thoroughly enjoy it.
He's I know he was on, and I because I saw the blurb, and I'm gonna listen to it. He's a smart guy, and I met him many years ago because he was buddies with Dusty Cole, one of the founders of the Toronto Film Festival, and
He was very involved with the Toronto Film Festival.
yeah. So and Dusty was sort of like an uncle to me, one of my best friends as his daughter, and so I remember the early days of the film festival, and Dusty had a farm that we would all go up with, and people like Alan Gregg would be there, and you know, really he's a smart guy.
That's funny to me because I was introduced to Alan Gregg through a guy named Jesse Hirsch. Smart guy, interesting guy, but he left the city to live on a farm. So maybe that's where we got to go. Let's go back to the land.
Hey,
Are you thinking about it?
I'd love to. Actually, when COVID started, when I started talking to Anissa about selling our house on Soho around Queen Espadina,
Yeah.
you know what? In early days of pandemic, you know what? Let's just
Buy
get
a
some
farm.
place, create not a farm. I wouldn't have that
Okay,
kind of
but somewhere out of the-
cabbage, if you know what I mean. Right? As Kramer would say, there's a lot of cabbage.
Well, he'd wash it in the shower, right?
Oh man, that show! I'm telling you, like I still watch because I can't. The day after the election, the American election,
Yeah.
I canceled my TV service. Right, because the only two channels I would really watch were Turner Classic Movies, even just to have it in the background, and I would gravitate to CNN or whatever. I'm like just so done with.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to any American news networks. But the day after that election, I spent it with the boss. What are your thoughts on Bruce Springsteen?
Oh wow! Well, I have great admiration for him. I saw him. A good friend of mine had a bunch of tickets to see Springsteen and went to see him, and I had seen him many years before a few times because of other friends.
Right.
He's an incredible artist. Some of the songs are great. The songs where it's like "Pale and with a truck and my dad," like I you know that.
There's a
doesn't
pale
matter.
horse coming. I'm gonna ride it.
There you go.
I ride in the morning. My fate's decided. The
Okay.
good man walking.
Right. But some of his songs, like, you know, are just so spectacular. And his performance was great. Like, you could see the band he loves the band.
the E Street Band.
Yeah, he's just great guy. So what do I think of him? He's a superstar.
The saxophonist, because of sadly Clements died, but Jake
His
Clements,
son.
his nephew.
Oh, his nephew,
but
right.
he's an FOTM. He's been here.
Wow.
There's you go. And,
Well,
and I've seen Max Weinberg when I saw the Conan O'Brien filmed here in Toronto in 2003, and I was there for that.
Wow.
There you go. Anyways, Bruce Springsteen was fucking awesome the day after that election. He's incredible.
Well, yeah, no, he's like, you know, an artist in the best sense of the word, you know.
And he had a good cameo on Curb Your Enthusiasm to bring it back to Seinfeld.
I didn't see it.
We'll have to-
I've lost touch with Curb Your Enthusiasm.
well, it's done now, but
But the last two seasons,
Okay.
I'm not really on it.
so it all comes back because I did have a comment on the live stream. You were talking about JFK, not JFK,
Robert
RFK.
Kennedy Jr.
JFK Jr. died in a flight, crashed his plane. Okay,
Yeah.
although plays a key role in a great Seinfeld episode because that's why Elaine lost the contest.
Yeah, right.
She saw JFK Jr., but RFK Jr.
And he ended up with the virgin.
Right. Do you know, from Frasier?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jane Leaves or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know who RFK Jr. is married to?
Yeah, to Cheryl Hines, is it?
Cheryl Hines.
The ex-wife of Larry David in the show.
You are 100% right from the Groundlings. And
Yeah.
And Tyler on the live stream says that the blue, and I don't know if he's joking or not. I'm just going to read it, and then I know exactly how I want to close this conversation. You've been great. Sir Jerry, you're always great. Will you come to any more TMLX events?
For sure.
There's one on June 26th at Great Lakes Brewery.
Okay, if I...
Very close to you. Will you drive? Well, you can drive there. That's too far to walk.
No, if it's a long distance, I walk.
Okay, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Well, you can bike with me if you want. I'm going to bike to it.
All right.
Now, the
I do
live stream
bike.
comment. Okay, cool. Do you bike in this weather?
Yeah.
Okay. Because not everybody does.
What, I'm going to drive?
You drove next door. You live next door to me, and you drove. Okay, so that blue,
Next door,
the blue,
upstairs.
the blue liquid that RFK Jr. was drinking. I can't tell if he's joking or not, but the VP tells me it's fish tank cleaner. And you know what's funny? We live in a world where I don't know if that's a joke or not.
Well, that'll get rid of a worm in a brain.
That's right. That is right. Okay, so I wanted to close with a conversation, a very topical conversation about the Oscars. But I do have one more note for you, which is that the most recent episode of Toronto Mic'd is me introducing to the FOTMs a gentleman, an interesting gentleman who he doesn't hold back, doesn't pull his punches. He just tells you how he feels, and I find it refreshing, even though I disagree with many of the things he says. I love the fact we can talk about it all. His name is Nick Iones, and he is a condo developer with Fusion Corp Developments, Inc. And the most recent episode is Nick and I just having a chat about, what he's up to, what he thinks about this, that, and the other. And he was here this morning. So I want to shout out Nick Iones, the newest sponsor of Toronto Mic'd, and his podcast, Building Toronto's Skyline. And one more thing for you, Sir Jerry. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. That's where you go if you got old cables, old electronics, old devices. You don't throw it in the garbage because those chemicals end up in our landfill. You go to RecycleMyElectronics.ca. You put in your postal code, which will be similar to my postal code, and then you'll find out where you can drop it off. Staples near Sherway is a good place to do it.
Okay. Can I say something about Sir Jerry?
Yeah.
Last night, I was having dinner with Jeff Stober, the owner of the Drake Hotel and the various Drake enterprises.
Okay.
I've known him a long time. It was a fun dinner. And a couple of other guys, Bill Simpson, and who was the general manager of the Drake for many years. So many of my Sir Jerry shows were at the Drake. And the last Sir Jerry show I had was before the pandemic. And I was asked the question, are you going to do another Sir Jerry show?
Right.
To which I said, well, maybe I've always thought maybe if I could get a sponsor or something. So anyways, they want me to do another show. So I think I am going to do another show. Originally, I was going to call it, last night I said, well, maybe I should call it Sir Jerry's One Foot in the Grave show, but the kids might not get it. But I think I'm going to do it.
Do it, man. I have a dream where Sir Jerry comes to TMLX 18 on June 26th at Great Lakes Brewery.
Is there, I got to remember this because I got to do everything you asked me to do.
I'll send an email with the list of things you need to do to earn that lasagna and that Great Lakes beer.
Please.
So the Oscars are March 2nd.
Yeah.
I thought we'd close, maybe revisit this in maybe greater detail. Would you mind sharing with us your personal Oscars experience, Sir Jerry Levitan?
Sure. So when my short, I Met the Walrus, was nominated for an Oscar.
Maybe get closer to the mic if I could order you what to do.
Sure. No, I do whatever you tell me to do. So that in itself, when I got the call from the Academy Awards, it was crazy. And then the section of the Academy Awards, the animated short section, was, and I think still is, a relatively small section. And some of the Academy Award nominations are voted on by the entire members of the Academy. So Best Actor, Best Picture, that kind of thing. But some of the more esoteric ones, like animated shorts, is sort of a tight group. And back then, they still had old Disney animators from, the 40s and 50s. Anyways, they asked me to come down a week before the Oscars because they have these tours of animation studios. So I went down a few days before the Oscars, went to every major animation studio from Disney to whatever, and there'd be executives there and all that kind of stuff. So that started with a buzz. Then there are these events right before the Oscars. There's the Oscar lunch thing, that nomination lunch. So I went down for that, and it's a tight, small group, just the people nominated, and hanging out with George Clooney and Laura Linney. Laura Linney, when I bumped into her, I said the stupidest thing. I said, "Wow, you look so much better in real life." And she gave me this real Laura Linney sort of look.
That's funny.
Right? But anyways, the Oscars itself. So CTV, because for a variety of reasons, started to really promote my short and embraced it. So and right after the Oscars, they broadcast my short. So they were doing all kinds of stuff. The head of CTV was down there, and I think, and they were sending limos. And then all of a sudden, CNN got on it and wanted to broadcast live in a limo on the way to the Oscars. So I bumped CTV because CNN's limo was way bigger. And we get to the Oscars, and it's like nothing, like you can try to imagine how crazy it is. It's crazier. So the security is really, really tight. You have to, back then, you had to give your cell phones, whatever. So.
You had to give up your cell phone?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's like going to a Jack White concert or something. You got to put it in a Ziploc bag and they take it. Okay.
Right. It's a Mission Impossible kind of thing, Tom, So, so just going down the red carpet and the media there, and just Daniel Day-Lewis is behind you, and it's really that kind of a scene, and you get in the theater, and it's a lockdown, right? So the press isn't there in the theater other than the broadcasters. And so the seats that we had, there were 2 seats. And ultimately, Anissa was sitting with me, and the other person who was with me didn't. He was the director of the film, sort of went elsewhere. The seats were about 6 rows behind the front in the center. For some crazy reason, the animated short nominees were in this prestigious area.
That is strange. Okay.
So to the left of me, I was at the aisle. On the left side was Mickey Rooney and his grandchildren holding him up. George Clooney was 2 over. Like I was in a
Rooney
sea.
and Clooney. See, 'cause
Rooney
they
and
rhyme.
Clooney. Yeah. So I was in this small sea of the big Scorsese, all these people. Anyways, Jerry Seinfeld announced the nominees in my category. So it was all just completely meshuggah, as my people say. And then...
Lawyers? Who are your people?
Lawyers, well, there's a stereotype.
No. That's not what I meant. You know it. Right. Now I will have to fix it in post. I did not mean it that way.
So I wasn't really devastated when we lost because... The film that won was such a great film. But anyways, it was just such a buzz to be there. So when we lost and what the audience would see the credits at the end and whatever, I grabbed Anissa's hand and I said, "I've got a great line for Jack Nicholson." And she was desperately trying to make me not do it. So against the crowd of people leaving, the stars and directors leaving, I took her down the aisle. Nicholson always, in those days, was in the front row and whatever, with his sunglasses on. Yeah. We sort of go right up to him. I was nose to nose to him, and I said, "Hey, Jack, I'm an Oscar loser." And he lifted his sunglasses up, and he said, "Who's this next to you?" I said, "Oh, that's my girlfriend." And he said, "Well, you don't look like a loser to me." And he grabbed her and gave her like a complete Hollywood kiss.
On the lips?
On the lips and more, right?
Okay.
Like it was like a serious kiss. And she was
Wow.
like just dangling. And then he put his sunglasses down and he says, well, it was very nice meeting you two, but my friend Javier Bardem or whatever is waiting for me. Right. And as we were leaving, I said to Nisa, your lips have now touched a part of every actress in.
And she said it's Chinatown, baby.
Yeah. And then, so it's still very tight. So as we're leaving, what's her name? She played Catwoman in one of the Batman movies.
Halle Berry.
No.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
No. In the, what's her name? Anne, she was in Devil Wears Prada.
Hathaway.
Yes, Anne Hathaway. So bumping into her, what's the name of?
I like this game, by the way. When you describe people, I tell you.
Well, I'm elderly. What's the name of the great? He died not that long ago.
Leonard Cohen.
No, the producer Sinatra, We Are the World. Thriller.
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones. You see, you had to wait for a second.
Only half a second.
He was there too. So, and then you go from there to the Oscar dinner, catered by the big Hollywood
Palma Pasta.
Palma Pasta from Mississauga. It was in Mississauga.
Yeah, Mississauga and Oakville.
Which is crazy that they're everywhere. They're in Mar-a-Lago now, and they're going to call it Mara Pasta. Anyways, Wolfgang Puck. Okay,
Right, famous chef.
So they're all there, right, having this dinner, and you get on every in front of on every plate there was a chocolate Oscar made by the biggest chocolate person or whatever, and there were these flip books. I still have it. If you come to my home one day, I'll
In fact, I'm
show
waiting
you.
for the invite.
You're gonna get it. We have
You've
to.
only been an FOTM since May.
I want you in the summer. Come over for barbecue.
Will
Drive.
Jeff Rogers be there?
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine I
drive. Also, Lee
I'll bring the
Fairclough.
Great Lakes beer.
Okay. So, anyways,
Yeah,
so
Lee can do it.
you got all these things. So a flip book where
Yeah.
it had 4 or 8 movies, and you just flip it, like great movies like Citizen Kane or whatever. Sure. Anyways, dinner is crazy, and then because I was friends with the people who won the Oscar, to go to the parties afterwards. There are all these lineups to get in. You hold up your Oscar, and they let you in. Like
That's how you get. That's
the
so good.
C part. So went with them. Went to the Elton John party, the Vanity Fair party.
Wow.
Like it was just crazy. But leaving the Oscars after the dinner, for some reason, most people had left already, and there are all these limos. You have to get your phone, limos, whatever.
Right.
As we're leaving, there weren't a lot of people on the reverse red carpet. But in front of us, walking in front of us, was about 4 or 5 feet, was John Travolta, his wife, and Forrest Whitaker and his wife. And they're walking, and Travolta trips. Oh. And he had in his arms about 8 or 10 of those flip books. He obviously took it off of other people's things. So I bend down, and I started helping him. He says, "No, it's okay. You don't have to help me." And I said, "No, happy to help." And he said, "Why are you here? Whatever?" And I said, "I'm an Oscar loser." And then he looked at me, and it wasn't a joke. He says, "I lost twice." Right? That's my John Travolta story.
He lost for Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Goodness. Firstly, when Anissa is kissed on the mouth.
Yeah.
By Jack Nicholson,
Right.
and I'm sure he didn't like ask for consent. He just does this because
Right.
Jack Nicholson.
Right.
How did was she honored? Was she upset? Like, I'm just curious what her reaction was.
She wasn't an intimacy coordinator then.
Oh, right. That's right. Wow.
Right?
Right.
She was actually.
She's like, that's Hollywood, baby.
It was like, it was so crazy, cool, whatever, right?
Right.
You know?
Well, it's better than what Trump might have done because he grabs you somewhere
Well,
else.
you know, when you're a celebrity, you
They
can
let you do
grab
it.
somebody's,
Grab him by the-
womanhood.
you know what?
Yeah.
Okay, and here's a mind blow for you. By the way, I love hearing I'll never get to the Oscars. That's amazing, those stories, and I love the Travolta, everything. Travolta made a movie, because you might know he's a Scientologist.
Oh, that Battleship
Battlefield Earth.
Yeah.
Here's the mind blow on the way out, Sir Jerry. You hit it out of the park again. You'll be back, okay? And you'll be at TMLX 18. I'm losing track of the numbers.
Give
That's
me the
18.
details. I'll be there.
June
I'll be at the shelter
26,
meeting
6 to
too.
9. Okay, we're recording this, so you can just go back and play it. June 26, 6 to 9 p.m., 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard. That is Great Lakes Brewery. Very close to you. Very close to you.
You got it.
But do you want me to blow your mind? Okay.
Yeah.
The director of Battlefield Earth is a guy named, I'm really building it up, Roger Christian. Okay. He directed Battlefield Earth, which may or may not be the worst movie ever made. Okay. Where do you think in the world Roger Christian lives? You don't know.
Oh
right?
my God! What? New Toronto? Our neighborhood?
Mimico.
Mimico.
Roger Christian lives in Mimico.
Wow.
In fact, his son was dear friends of the guy who lived across the street, so he would often be right on this very street. And he did visit me for a backyard recording. We talked all about it because he's the guy who designed the Millennium Falcon, the lightsaber. He was part of the Star Wars
Wow.
team. Roger Christian, Battlefield Earth,
Wow.
lives in Mimico.
Do you know who lives on 2nd Street?
Give me a second. Wherever, that's really far from here, but let me think here.
Oh,
Second,
sorry.
I know. You're a
I'm
lawyer.
breaching-
You know,
I'm
you're not supposed to
breaching
dox.
confidentiality.
You're a lawyer, for goodness sakes. Hold on. Let me think about who lives on 2nd Street. No, but Mary Berg lives near there. But who lives on 2nd Street?
L. Ron Hubbard.
Is that true? No. He didn't. Fuck you.
No,
he didn't
he
live in
died.
fucking New Toronto.
He, in theory, died about 10 or so.
He definitely
some odd
died.
years ago.
I thought you were going to tell me the guy from Cheese Boutique, because I just learned Afram from the Cheese Boutique lives on very close to there. So there you go. And then we got to shout out Carl Hansky, and we got to shout out Michelle Butterly. All the greats live in New Toronto, including you, Sir Jerry. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Hey, it's always a pleasure.
And that, by the way, Tyler might deliver a West End Phoenix to you free of charge.
Wow. Okay.
Would you read it, or would it just line a
Yeah,
birdcage?
I'm going to resubscribe. I promise.
We got it. Bedini, you owe me, buddy. We got another one. And that brings us to the end of our 1,628th show. Go to torontomike.com for all your Toronto Mike needs. Where do I get my Sir Jerry fix? What's the website?
Sir-Jerry with a J.com. Click everywhere with sound. It's unreal.
Great website. Go there now. The kids will love it. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. You got your beer. Palma Pasta. Your lasagna's in my freezer right now. Don't leave without it. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Building Toronto Skyline. And Ridley Funeral Home. You got your measuring tape, Sir Jerry. My next guest was Holly Cole. Holly Cole, great musician. But I just got word she has to go to Japan. So she's been rescheduled for March 21st or something like that. So in the place of Holly Cole,
Me?
Sir Jerry returns. No. In the guise of Sir Jerry, though. I don't want to talk to this Levitan
I'll do
guy.
that. I'll do that.
One day, maybe in the summer. But I will be talking to John Wing, a great stand-up. You might have seen him at Yuck Yucks. He moved to the States, and we have a great conversation because he came up in the Jeremy Hotz episode. Jeremy Hotz was amazing, by the way. He was down here earlier this week. And I will talk to John Wing about Ralph Benmergie's set from the early 80s, and Wing will reproduce it so we can hear Benmergie's Yuck Yuck set from the early 80s. See you all then!